Hey guys, yeah, so it's been a little bit since I've made my last video. I believe it was the Taurus new moon. I think that was the last video I made. A lot of astrology's happened since then. I've just been caught up with just a lot of demands. Work has been extra demanding. And just a lot of things, and I've been going through some internal processing that's been a little different, reflecting on different things and aspects of myself. Haven't been super focused on astrology lately. I just haven't been super aligned with it lately, just because of how busy and hectic and just kind of different I've been sort of feeling lately. But anyway, what I want to focus on this video is I haven't made a video on Uranus and Gemini yet. So I want to primarily focus on Uranus and Gemini and Uranus squaring the lunar nodes right now. Primarily, that's what I'm going to get into. Maybe a few other things actually too, but so Uranus entered Gemini, it was late April, so it's already been about a month and a half or so. It's not going to go anywhere for a while. It will be about 7 years, a 7-year long transit, like Uranus transits are. It takes 84 years for it to go around the circle of the zodiac. And the thing is with Uranus in Gemini, Uranus governs the collective consciousness, right? And with that said, that has a lot to do with, just humanity at large. Like what is humanity collectively, consciously focusing on? I don't think that question is really asked enough. I don't think that we give that enough time, for our individually, how can we assist, our contribution to humanity at large? Like where are we going as one organism? Because we are one organism, collectively, consciously. Uranus is that energy, and Uranus is a progressive energy. And Gemini, the astrologer that actually got me into astrology was Linda Goodman. And at 15 years old, I was reading Linda Goodman's love signs, and I remember she, like, your average typical Gemini, she referred as being lost in the woods with a broken compass, but pretending like they know which direction to go in. And I kind of see, like, our collective consciousness and where we're aiding humanity, or where humanity's at collectively is kind of like that, where we're like lost in the woods with a broken compass, but we think we know which direction to go, even though we're totally clueless, or we're lost, or we have an idea of why we think this is the direction to go in. But I just don't think that we marinate on this topic enough as, like, what are we doing collectively as a whole? And I do think that we are a little scattered, a little lost, and just, we're going in all sorts of different directions, thinking we know where we're going, what we're doing, how we're going to get there, and stuff like that. And it's Uranus and Gemini, I just feel like, is a little chaotic on the collective scale of humanity, and how I do feel that, like, although it is pretty bad now, Uranus and Gemini can produce a bigger epidemic of mental illness. And by the time we get to Cancer, Uranus in Cancer, it will be like a full-blown like epidemic if we don't do something about it. If we don't contribute collectively in the right ways. Because Uranus in Cancer is kind of like becomes like that inherited genetic code of where illnesses and whatnot becomes inherited, and it will kind of just take on past history and vicious cycles if we don't correct it, and that's where Uranus in Cancer would be in the next 7 years. So and then of course we have AI taking over. Uranus governs over technology, and Gemini governs over information. So the thing is, like, a lot of people are starting to figure out too that like AI is often giving you wrong information. Another typical average thing that Gemini energy is that it knows a little bit about everything, but not a lot about anything. And it's very good at kind of spinning the information that they do know into something that sounds good, and they may believe it, and it may even be true, but that's the kind of thing to expect here with AI. And Gemini, AI is already like two people, like it's the twins, Gemini is the person they are, and the person they want to be is kind of hiding behind them. A high-functioning, healthy Gemini shows their multifaceted personality in front of you, and they show you both parts of themselves. They're all their multifaceted personality that they have in front of you, and they don't confuse it and don't use it in other ways to other people and whatnot. They want to learn more, and they get skilled at actually becoming an expert instead of being the jack of all trades and master of none, which is also a typical thing. So humanity is going to have lots and lots of ideas. Technology is going to be, the AI is going to give us loads of information that we are going to use, but we got to be careful how we use that information, because it may not be all true. And especially I've noticed this a lot with AI astrology more than most other things when I get my information from AI. So you just got to be careful. Wherever technology and information is coming from, you may have to be more discerning, and you can't just roll with everything told to you for this time period of Uranus and Gemini. But it does beg the question about how what we need to really think about as a whole and collectively, to figure out what it is that we're doing together as one, unified. I mean, we already have Pluto in Aquarius. We already have to purify all the corruption of what is happening in humanity. You see, because Uranus is the collective consciousness, Neptune is the collective unconsciousness, and Pluto is kind of like the collective creation or collective manifestation. And Pluto wants to purify and authenticate. So being that it's in Aquarius, it's going through the filtration process of all it's time to purify and put humanity through a filter to come out more authenticated and pure, and that's what we're undergoing right now with Pluto and Aquarius, because the corruption has gotten to whenever Pluto enters a sign, it's because it's time to kind of it filter that sign that it's in, what its archetype and the things that it represents. And Uranus is actually within trine to Pluto in Aquarius right now as well. So it's very much a time where we want to think about what it is that we're doing on a collective scale and where it is that we're going with Uranus and Gemini, and how are we going to harness the power of technology and information and use it to its best ability without corruption or control of the narrative, which is also something that Gemini is a part of, is controlling the narratives. And as of right now, we have Uranus square to the lunar nodes, the north node and the south node of the moon. And this right now, like so specifically right now, with Uranus and the lunar nodes, they are in square. So it can kind of feel like our evolution is, in a sense, kind of going backwards a little bit. There's like pressure, there's these tensions where what the path, the chosen path that we wanted to go on is like, we're almost kind of like doing the opposite, and it's uncomfortable, and we feel tension and pressure of like, why is this happening? Why are we moving backwards? But, you know, I saw an Instagram video about a guy saying that the step backwards are just all a part of the dance. So, and I thought how that would apply to right now with Uranus square to the nodes. It almost, I feel like Uranus square to the nodes just kind of takes you on a completely different evolving direction. And it may not seem like evolution, but it's also, but like I said, it's a part of the dance, right? And it's just, I feel like it's just interesting because it's exactly what we probably do have in mind. We just don't know it yet. And we just kind of, with Uranus, you kind of have to like hold your breath and just trust that it's doing its thing and it's taking you down the right detour to go, you know. And you're gonna land safely wherever the destination spot is, because you know the nodes definitely mean purpose and destination, like a destination, and to some degree. Well, the journey is kind of the destination, I guess, with the north node and the south node. But what journey Uranus is doing, squaring that, can be a little abrupt, a little disruptive, and not so, being that it's square, it may feel a little stressful and challenging on top of all that. And being able to feel safe and trusting, and why is this happening? Where is this going? Why did I take, it's like your classic, where you have two roads to go down and you get to choose where you're going. But those two roads that you're going down may not be what you thought they were. Neither one, basically. And that's kind of how I see this Uranus square to the lunar nodes. It's kind of like, it's just much the path to leveling up and evolving past our comfort zones, moving in the present towards the future, because the north node and Uranus are both progressive. The south node is more regressive, right? But it's also where we lay the foundations for what we know. We just have to move out of the comfort zone. And it's kind of like what I've learned from human design. It's like the south node is kind of like your mind that's for other people, but the north node is like what's for you. You know, but we get caught up in the mind chatter of the south node that is meant for others and not meant for us. You know, we think, you know what I mean, we're supposed to, you know, just like the apple off the tree is not meant for the tree, it's meant for, you know, you. us. So there's no point getting caught up in what our mind is good for. It's good for other people, kind of thing. And the North Node is kind of where you come into balance with what's good for you so that you can harness and produce the right fruit off the tree for others. And where Uranus is taking us with this square is just, it may feel very unexpected and very different from the direction that we had in mind. And then in order to build like comfort from it may, be a little challenging. But what's interesting is, like I was saying, Uranus is actually in trine also to Pluto, which is also retrograde right now in Aquarius. It's only about like 2-3 degrees off, I think. I think we're at 5 degrees Pluto. And then it's also sextiling Neptune in Aries. So it's very, like I said, it's very much about, reflecting on what we are doing as a collective, because the outer planets are very generational, very mass. They're very much about the masses and very much about the collective energy itself and where it's moving, where it's shifting to. And these are beneficial aspects that Uranus and the Uranus that's squaring the nodes is also sextiling Neptune and trining Pluto in Aquarius. That's also retrograde. Which, by the way, I do think it's a little funny. Well, maybe not funny, but I see that Pluto, when it goes retrograde, it does get a little bit more hype than it should, just because Pluto tends to spend about almost half its time retrograde. It's the slowest moving planet. It's about 5 months out of the year where it is retrograde. And it's, it's just a huge part of the Pluto process. And during Pluto's time being retrograde, it's going through a more internal process. As we know, as retrograde is more internal. Retrogrades go more within, more internal. And Pluto is kind of like it's gathering all the transformative processes. It's undergoing a lot of regeneration. It's a regeneration in process. And it's kind of like it can be like by the time Pluto goes direct, that's when it kind of is it should get more talked about, because that's when we see where all this regenerative processes, where it created the transformation of Pluto. It needs to hibernate into its retrograde period. And this could mean like, let's just say we're some big operation where you're, trying to take down some criminals, but it's you got to play a little bit of chess, to get, what I mean? It's like Pluto retrograde kind of represents that, where, you're learning to kind of like almost think like you're the good guy, but you're learning how to think like the bad guy and how to, catch the bad guy kind of thing. So by the time it goes direct, the transformation is complete. We got him, kind of thing. And that's kind of what Pluto retrograde is, in a sense. And it's all part of the Pluto process. It's, like I said, it's almost half the time it's hibernating to create those big direct Pluto motion where transformation is happening, and purification and authentication, and running all the impurities through that filter. And that's where humanity's at right now with Pluto and Aquarius, is that it's humanity that's going through that filter, and it's trine to Uranus, in Gemini, which is our collective consciousness. So it's flowing in harmony, and it's sextiling Neptune. So that's creating the lines of communication with Neptune, our spirituality, and it can mean deception. So it is about reading between the lines, but sextiles give us a more clear window into having opportunity and communication. And so, like I said, these are all slow-moving outer planets that deal with the masses and generations, and they are all more collective. So it's a huge time right now, especially as we're squaring the nodes and pondering why we're feeling tension with our direction, is because I feel like right now we really want, what they really want is they want us, the stars are trying to get us to really think about what it is that we're doing collectively. How can we unify? Where can we, do better and not be so lost during a Uranus and Gemini 7-year transit? What road are we going to take? Is it the past or the future? The north node or the south node? Well, it's squaring right now. It's just a really interesting time with these outer planets and the nodes being square to Uranus, and then all the outer planets making these aspects. It's very much about the collective consciousness and figuring out what it is we're doing and where we are going, what direction we're going to take, what is our own individual path to take, what is our own individual process to contribute to, how are we going to impact the world and the collective and humanity for the best. So I just think that right now the timelines, we could experience a further divide, but I feel like the sextile to Neptune and the trine to Pluto while it's retrograde, it's like we're almost undergoing some major catalyst on a scale that we may not completely see right now, but we might see by time, like say Pluto goes direct, we will see that humanity may have taken one big, more giant leap forward when it's all said and done. And I feel like that might be the process that we're undergoing right now. And maybe that's why I've kind of been feeling like so many emotions at once, like, happy, sad, confused, clear, angry, calm, all that stuff. It's like thrown into one crock pot and, in like a stew, and I'm like feeling it all at once. Because, I'm an Aquarius, and, and Pluto's hitting really close to my Sun and Mercury and Venus, my stellium. And, Uranus is there trining it. And the Neptune energies there sextiling. And I just think that we have a lot to reflect on and a lot to feel, to know what our role is moving forward in assisting the collective and humanity at large with this. And our evolution, it's never moving backwards. Remember, it's all a part of the dance. And it may, like I said, it may feel as though we are moving backwards, but we're not right now. Everything is happening for a reason. And the nodes being square is where we get to choose the timeline that we want to, take, the route, the direction, what two pathways are we going to choose. And either pathway you choose, I believe it will be a part of that dance, and it will correct itself, and it will make sense later. And that's the good news. And I think that's part of the problem that we may not see with this Uranus square to the lunar nodes, because of the sextile to Neptune and the trine to Pluto retrograde. So you try to relax with this square as much as with a Uranus square. I just feel like whenever you have Uranus and you have square, it just that, relaxing isn't the first word that comes to your mind, but it, as crazy as that might sound, that might be the best option. Because it's just, a Uranus and a square to anything, there is a method to the madness to all of it. But yeah, I don't know. I felt compelled to finally get another video going, and I was just thinking how I haven't done Uranus and Gemini yet, and it's squaring the nodes right now. So choose wisely nonetheless. Don't just be careless about what path you're going to take and it will make sense later. No. Choose wisely, where you're going, with what direction you're going, how you're evolving, how you're leveling up. Where are you most comfortable, and is it holding you back? Are you complacent? Uranus and the North Node want to be progressive, both of them. So when you're having touches with the Uranus and the North Node, I mean, this is high surges of momentum, moving fast. So you hop on the right path, you may find a lot of miracles. Even if you go out on the wrong path, the catastrophes may make sense later on, because that Uranus does do miracles or catastrophes, but it's always the thing is, one thing about Uranus, you always have to remember it's progressive, and it's kind of like an unconscious purpose always happening in a sense. So because you can't see the collective motion and what it's doing, you can't see the collective consciousness, you can't, what I mean, you can only contribute and be a part of it. And that's what Uranus is. And while it's in Gemini, we're going to be pulling in a lot more information and a lot more things into our awareness. And then, in a couple of days, we have the Gemini new moon, which I've noticed new moons and full moons in Gemini does that a lot. We get on information overload. But anyway, I'll make a video on the Gemini new moon as well, or at least I'll plan on it. But anyway, I'll just leave it there for all of you. Don't just take care, but give care too. And I will see you next time.